Prime Minister Narendra Modi has rightly said, I see technology as a means to empower and as a tool that bridges the distance between hope and opportunity. CSI Student Council of BBD ITM Lucknow organized a one-day national webinar on India and digital transformation on 29th November.
The digital world in the education process. The technology has provides a level playing field for students for all sections of society. Constant technology progress with the growing popularity of social media and the Internet of Things nowadays is driving educational ecosystems. As an imperative of the social inclusion, there is a growing need in the school and higher education institute to provide affordable and accessible model of education transformations to a wider variety of students. Some university and the educational technologies companies have already started innovative virtual learning model by offering free online courses and certification programs. While while the course curriculum is an ever-evolving area based on the current and future trends. Teaching learning methodology is a specialized domain where the experiments and the innovations are particularly needed. At this juncture, technology innovations can add a lot of value to current pedagogical practice. The digital transformation in education can enhance the international learning, instructional learning, especially in the higher education by creating a blended learning experience that combines both traditional classroom-based methods and the modern technology that normally the education institutes are using it. Another important advantage of digital transformation in education is in the management of education itself. Digitizations can help in the automation of academic administrations and other back office operations in the admissions, placements, alumni relationship, student supports services, etc. Now, even in the last semester examination, we successfully conducted the online examination in the universities for the education system. Every year, academic institutions face the task of submitting institutional data to several ranking and accreditation agencies. They have to depend upon a lot of mutual work for compiling the information, optimize the academic productivity. Digital interventions can help school and higher education institute to manage the relationship with the students, parents, alumni, teachers, and other interest group more effectively, more efficiently. Digital right from the schooling and necessity, and this COVID is also provide this opportunity us to do further digitalizations. Right from the schooling to the higher educations, every level of our learning system is affected by the technology. Rapidly evolving technology is transforming the way knowledge is imparted and observed today. Increasing digitization is making way for new communication instruments, establish faster knowledge sharing in school and colleges. That is immediate action in thus imperative by all stakeholders, including academic leaders and policymakers, to enable more efficient and responsive integration of technology in academia. The need is identify meaningful and relevant use of digital technology to improve the student overall learning management system. The digital transformation of our education system will require commitment from all stakeholders. There is a growing need to integrate the smart use of digital technology to enhance the teaching learning experience. New technology in the education such as cloud computing, MOOCs, we are working on a lot of MOOCs, smart board, etc. are already impacting the teaching learning process in a big way. Adoption of new educational technology will enable teachers to make drastic improvement in the academic delivery and student assessment process. It can enable a better learning experience for students and improve the job prospects. However, digitalization will only be effective in a technology is used as a tool to drive the systematic and instrumental change to impart the knowledge and develop job skill, not merely to automate and fast track the process of learning. I wanted to share my experience in the research also. When I was doing my research, my PhD, in around 2000, around 2001, I visited IIT Delhi library and find out the papers from the transaction from a big library in the IIT Delhi. They are not allowed me to take a journal outside. And I asked the librarian how I'll take these articles. You know, that time no smartphone, otherwise I click it. So I asked the librarian, and librarian guided me that about the photocopy shop in the library itself. I selected the number of articles from the number of journals with number of pages. After 15 days, they send it to my address, and I paid the entire amount of the photocopy in advance. But because of the digital transformations in the last 20 years, we are able to access not the Indian library, not the IITian library, world library in our phone only. So finally, I wanted to say that we must use a digital platform in the education and research. Without this, quality and accuracy is not possible. Again, I thank the organizer to invite me to share my views in this field. Thank you to all.
Thank you, Durgesh.
Thank you, sir.
And you are in a marriage house till then you devoted time and you spare time to come. It's very much the organizer must be grateful for to you because you are in a marriage ceremony at present.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are extremely grateful for such precious words. Without any further delay, I would now like to call Dr. B. Pitambarajan, a passionate teacher who has always invested innovative teaching nuances to reach students. He is a member of professional societies like IETE, IEI, ISTE, CSI, ISOI, and is the National Executive Council member of ISTE and chairperson Division 4 of Computer Society of India. Sir, we are excited to hear you.
Sir, thank you for the introduction. Respected President of CSI, RKVR, Chief Guest of today's function, Professor A.K. Nayak, immediate past President and Chairman Academic and Awards Committee, Dr. Sunil Pandey, Director, IT and UT Programs ITS, Dr. Sailesh Kumar Srivatsava from NIC, and Dr. Durgesh Kumar Mishra, and Mr. Arvind Sharma, Vice President, Region 1, Computer Society of India, Dr. Sailesh Kumar Srivatsava, Professor Dr. Bhavesh Kumar Chauhan, and Dr. Divagar Yaga Singh. A very good afternoon to you, every one of you. Today I am very happy to meet you all on this webinar titled India and Digital Transformations. First of all, I thank the team BBTITM, student branch of the college, for having association with the Division 4 Communications Computer Society of India to organize today's event. Further, I thank Professor A.K. Nayak for his support to organize today's event. And of course, he is the man instrumental for organizing more than 475 events under the banner of Computer Society of India. As he mentioned, soon we are going to get Guinness record for organizing many online events during this pandemic period. Moving forward to today's topic, India and the digital transformation. As everyone knows, India is the second most populated country in the world with nearly 1/5 of world's population. Though we are facing lot of hurdles like population, area, and number of states, number of languages, urban, rural, etc., etc. Though we are facing lot of hurdles, India is one of the largest and fastest growing markets for digital consumers For information, more than 600 million internet subscribers are there in India. This is second only to China. Already, you know that Indians have 1.2 billion mobile phone subscriptions. And in the recent completed year, Indians downloaded more than 12 billion applications, mobile applications. That means 1,200 mobile applications. So it was observed in India that in the recent years, there was a tremendous growth in digital transformation. This may be because of various reasons. Of course, a lot of steps taken by the government, particularly after introducing demonetization and the introduction of GST, and of course due to the current pandemic situation. For example, the government has enrolled more than 1.2 billion Indians in its biometric digital identity program, Aadhaar. And similarly, government brought more than 10 million businesses onto a common digital platform with the support of new scheme GST. So similarly, government introduced various digital schemes like e-toll services, online banking and transactions, online property and land registrations, online weather forecasting, online voter ID, passport, driving license, PAN card, IT filing, even for common people, smart card for ration, online agriculture insurance, online agriculture market, consultation, weather warning, etc. These are the many digital programs introduced to common people by Government of India. Even after the pandemic period, the educational sector completely moved to digital mode by organizing meetings, by conducting classes by online, conducting guest lectures, webinars, etc., etc., even laboratories with the support of virtual lab. So nowadays teachers are ready to organize any events through online. Even we can meet students across the country or across the world. And so staff members are preparing multimedia contents nowadays. And of course, I feel that in future, even after the pandemic period, there may be at least 30 to 40% online content will be there always. And hereafter, there won't be any correspondence course. There will be only regular course or online course will be there for certification. So in my observation, by seeing all these changes which has happened in the recent past, India is digitizing faster than any other country, and of course there's a room to grow because so far we have more than around 40% of the population is having internet subscriptions, and it is expected that every year there will be a rise of 5 to 10% internet subscription will be there in India. So by calculating all those things, I'm sure that India will reach its goals within another 5 to 7 years. I thank you all for the opportunity given to me, and thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chidambaram
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are extremely grateful for such precious words. With this, let's welcome to the panel Mr. Shailesh Kumar Srivastava, sir, Scientist and Head Digital Government Research Center, NIC, to enhance our knowledge. So please carry forward the program.
Sir, your mic is muted, I think.
So thank you very much. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee, Mrs. Alka Das, Viraj Sagar Das, the organizing committee at Division 4, then all the people who are here, our guru is here, Dr. A.K. Naik. He has been sole inspiration for us. R.K. Vyas sir, CSI president, Dr. D.K. Misra, and all the dignitaries. I think Mr. Yadav is also there. So I thank all the people for inviting me, and Thank you, students. Hope I'll be basically I'll be concentrating more on the infrastructural side and how exactly that digital transformation is taking place in India. We basically in government we have responsibility of not serving a specific set of people, but the population is 135 crores, and when we build up systems, we have to cater those number of persons where their location is not clear, identity, there is lot of problems, the databases do not talk with each other, we have created islands of applications, there is no integration framework available. So struggling with those kind of thing, India has to move ahead with the digital transformation. In my view, the COVID period has become really boon in disguise for us, because without any thought, we had to transform ourselves to the digital platforms. And today, when we hear that NACSR has organized around 500 webinars, it is the power of digital transformation that has taken place in India, which connects hundreds and thousands of people on these platforms. Hopefully, India also learns through this. And most of, see, our main aim will be the local governments, which are ULBs and the panchayats. Unless otherwise the services which we are thinking is delivered to the last mile, our actual objective will not be fulfilled. Otherwise, you know that there is a chance that a digital divide will be created, and there will be a divide between haves and have-nots. So considering those kind of things, it is very, very important to first understand what exactly infrastructures that has been created, which is basically affecting our lives. What are the things that, see, it's not a single agency which is doing. It is basically a collaborative approach in which various stakeholders, both from government and private, they join hand together, and various kind of services through multi-delivery channels are currently available. I have a small presentation. I hope I'll be able to show to you. Just 1 minute. Is my PowerPoint is visible now?
Yes, yes, pura completely.
Anybody can confirm? Okay. So okay. So when we think of India 2020, we expect that there is a proper digital service platform available for the citizen, and people are able to access the digital services as well as get the benefits through these kind of digital platforms. Now, when we analyze, there are say 3-4 segments that we can think of. The first one is the digital infrastructure. Digital infrastructure basically will have a set of data centers, cloud infrastructure, and then we will have networks. Networks basically connecting the physical as well as physical networks as well as wireless network. Both will be there. Similarly, as we understand that we have population of around 130 crores, and we have mobile phones equally in number, mobile phones maybe say 100 crore smartphones also available. So this is a kind of digital penetration which our society has, that in case we are delivering any service through these networks, that can easily reach to the country. So when we plan applications, it is basically we have to take in. See, we cannot think of creating our own every time. There are already platforms India has created. As we understand, JAM platform, in which Jandan account through bank, Aadhaar platform which has been created for digital identity, and the mobile network. So all these things basically combined together provides a variety of service integration mechanism by which our applications can provide. Similarly, we have been talking of a lot of e-governance services. We'll discuss some of them. And these e-governance services basically reach to the remotest places. Now, unless otherwise, these services, e-governance services being provided by different departments, maybe central government, state government, even the state government, there are various departments available. Unless otherwise there is a integration of these services, we may not be able to provide service on demand. In my view, there should be a mechanism by which government should come up like right to public service. We need to have a act like right to digital service delivery. That is very important, because many of the cases, though the departments are computerized, but they are not delivering the services on the digital platform. Then, due to that, people have to travel a lot to go to their offices, and depending upon the availability of manpower, depending upon the availability of procedures, basically they have to go through the entire mechanism. So if voluntarily people deliver that services across the platform, then what will happen? Automatically service across that will come. I'll give you one example. See, if you understand GSTN, you will find that GSTN basically provides variety of service level agreements as well as services across the GSTN for variety of companies now. Now, there is a second layer of companies that has been created, which basically uses the GSTN services and provide variety of analytics services across that platform, which is being used by variety of companies as well as consultancies as well as citizens. So such kind of mechanism, when you have open data platforms available and open architecture available, any government, private or personal people, I think citizen, can collaborate and can provide variety of service. So when we are talking of digital transformation has need not be concentrated at a specific hands. Rather than open platforms need to be created, and these open platforms basically is shared among various kind of this thing. That also adds value to a lot of research work, with because unless otherwise this kind of openness is coming in the applications and the service delivery, there will not be much research work which can be carried out through such kind of data which is originated. Now, what is the opportunity? As we were talking, now we are having 1.36 1.36 billion people available. We were talking 1.20 crore 120 crore mobiles, internet users. So there is an ecosystem that has already been created. But these ecosystems, many of times we find that they are working in isolation. Now we need to have, the country need to have an integrated infrastructure management and integrated service delivery kind of thing, in which there is a proper mechanism available. I'll give you one example. In the month of January or something, I was in Estonia, one of the North European country. I went there, though it was a very small country, but they have created a kind of infrastructure in which applications are basically can plug and play. Any private application can plug and play, can access the public information. Similarly, it is mandatory for everyone to get registered to the citizen database. And say if a doctor services to any citizen, it is mandatory for them to share those information to the government repository. So such kind of mechanism is very, very important. I'm not telling that there should be a single agency which manages. It's not necessary. We can have decentralized mechanisms, but a single framework should be created across country in which applications middle layer are created and people are able to integrate with those kind of services. If we understand the framework for digital transformation, there are a variety of things will be there. There will be a lot of applications pertaining to particular domains like education, livelihood, agriculture, customs. So many applications will be there. There will be a lot of standards also need to be enforced between these applications. We were talking about open data. We need to have, country need to have a metadata standards in which how the applications are going to share their data, how that applications data exchange platform will be there, that need to be clearly defined. Similarly, many of us generally we feel that we mostly concentrate on on the service delivery, but the costing part is also very, very important. Growing heavily, and the country need to invest on open source platform so that there is a complete resources available for the development people also. So when we talk of this technology stack should be there, open data platforms should be available, data sharing mechanism also need to be created.
Hello.
And applications need to talk with each other, and there should be a integrated infrastructure on which this kind of service delivery will be there. The growth in last 10 years is exponential. Lot of changes has come. Earlier it was driven through government processes, but today lot of private players are available, lot of startups are there, lot of services which are currently we are experiences have been designed through startups. So there is a need to have a proper environment created in the country. There is a need to have readiness. ICT promotion plan should be there by which integration of the services should be there. Why we are talking of this? Because the expectations of the citizen has increased. When we started our career, that time, if we develop a simple payroll application, people will be satisfied to have a pay slip. Today, if I go, people are not interested in those kind of applications at all. So expectations of people is very, very high, and that basically is that basically has resulted that more complicated, more innovative applications need to be developed, and today we have platforms created social platforms. So many platforms are available. You can take the idea what was suggested that we need to have a seamless integration of applications between many of us. You will find that for one small work we have to get one clearance from one department, submit in other, or one department has to further resubmit in that. So such kind of things, the of processes need to be analyzed, and that it has to be, being business is another area where government we have worked in which is available. Many of Am I audible?
I request
Anybody? Hello?
Shayan Nayak, kindly mute.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
For fast transformation and fast distribution of information, today there are a lot of cloud infrastructure that is being created. In India, we started with a single cloud at Delhi, which was Madras cloud. But today, see, next 1 or 2 years, we are expecting that all the states will have their own cloud. Similarly, NIC also will create cloud at all the state centers. Mostly, they have already started that creating national data centers have been created and cloud. So, what exactly cloud adds to the application development? See, many of us, when we start developing some large size project, hosting those applications, then maintaining those applications are going to be very, very difficult. And many of the time, we spend a lot of time in creating infrastructure for hosting that application. So once this kind of cloud infrastructure, which is available, readily available in the country, is accessible to the public, then they can simply develop application and can host application. That kind of infrastructure need to be created in country where individual users or individual departments, they are not concerned about how exactly their hosting management and security aspect of the application is going to be. So such kind of SOP need to be created for large scale creation of infrastructure, both through the state government as well as the central government. Similarly, we were talking of creating an integrated network infrastructure which connects the central government, state government, or any other networks, which is basically NKN was one of the initiative in which government of India basically connected most of the research institutions. Not only in India, but outside India also, a lot of institutions have been created, added to NKN. But it is necessary that all the intranets which is available, which has been created by the state government, are integrated into the national infrastructure backbone, so that there is a seamless data communication between these networks. So that is what we were talking. There is a need to have an integrated infrastructure. All the statewide area networks, which is currently available in the state governments. Similarly, there is a NOF network which is connecting most of the villages of the country. Similarly, we have NKN and NICNET. All these need to be integrated into a single unified infrastructure backbone, so that much services up to the panchayat level we are able to deliver. Now, for last mile connectivity to the up to the panchayat level or up to the village level, there is a need to have horizontal transformation of networks also. Wired network may not be solution at all the places. Many of the places mobile networks are there, but connectivity is still issue. There are a lot of shadow areas. So in such cases, last mile connectivity can be through optical fiber or that. There are so many solutions currently available by which those services can be extended to the last mile. The issue should be how exactly we are going to see. Taking a wire up to the panchayat level is not solution. Maintaining, using it cost effectively is the most important. So unless only taking the network is not going to be sufficient, it is necessary that applications around those infrastructures are available and people are able to get those services. One of them is our common service centers, which are being strengthened so that most of the services available can be accessed from common services center. There is information in the application development that there is a need to deliver most of the services on mobile phone. So the government also has transformed itself on mobile first infrastructure. That is, you first deliver the services on mobile phone and then the solutions which are necessary that can be used. So this is basically up to the Gram Panchayat level. We have various integration plan, which basically is still in progress, but lot more to be done in this platform also. And as we were talking, there is a variety of devices available. Lot of integration frameworks, interfaces have been created. Diversified terminals are available. All these need to have mobile fixed as well as data bandwidth available, and that need to be shared among the applications. We were also talking about variety of services. Once cloud comes in the picture, we have various kind of services available through that. Now, another area in which I am also working, see, payment to the citizen is another vital area which we are looking up. Many of us know that government has one of the prime responsibility that they provide subsidies to the farmers, to the students, to the various old age pensions. There are various kind of people who basically either quarterly, monthly, or yearly, one time, so many ways by which government basically is providing this. Now, the payment gateways which are currently available, are they capable, or the infrastructure which is available is sufficient enough? Many of cases, when we do transactions, we have to pay around say 30 rupees to 60 rupees as service charge. Now, if we think of 2 crores or 3 crores or 10 crores transaction, digital transactions per day in country, such charges are extremely high. So it is necessary that such kind of gateways in real sense need to be created, like NPCI and RBI. They have to work together and create such kind of infrastructure which is cost effective. Otherwise, what will happen? Digital transformation, digital transactions, if it is taking a lot of money, people have to pay, then people will be reluctant. So such things also need to be done. Similarly, there are a lot of banking networks available. These banking networks do not exchange information. There are mechanisms which they have adopted. They provide APIs. Using these APIs, banking networks are connected. But still, there are a lot of hiccups in sharing the financial data, as well as integrating with the banking networks for having a real-time data exchange between applications. So host-to-host integration infrastructure also need to be improved so that our applications are able to get data as well as share data with the banking networks. Other mechanism which is possible is the secured FTP servers. Most of the banks also follow this secured FTP servers, in which you transfer data in batch mode and they also respond to in form of batch mode only. So secured FTP server is another way by which data exchange between these networks can take place. I think Aadhaar-based payment system, we have already started many of our applications. As you know, Prime Minister transfers in Kisan Samman Nidhi. That's a completely Aadhaar-based. Around 11 crore farmers are getting benefited through this. Aadhaar payment system is it is the future in which most of the people are going to adapt to this, but there are issues of how exactly those accounts will be mapped, availability of Aadhaar. So many issues are also there, but slowly it is going to mature and we will have variety of Aadhaar based services available to us. I think we have already talked on that. Okay. In addition, see, many of our applications also uses this GIS applications. See, location specific informations are very, very essential for planning purposes. So when you do geotagging of resources, geotagging of events, geotagging of infrastructures which are available, lot of spatial reality related decisions can easily be done. So bringing entire data, see how we can prevent that one particular location, one particular scheme was executed 2 years back, and again in the third year another new scheme they create and they then basically come up. So it is necessary that entire our this physical natural resources are available, all the roads, all the rivers, all this require planning purposes. We need to have GIS platform created across the country on which most of our resources are available. It's not just mapping of those resources. It is necessary that at regular intervals such kind of infrastructures are updated and integrated with our MIS system. Next one, IoT basically is also being used in variety of application. One of the application I will tell you, in Bihar what we have done is we have Nal Jal Yojana, and it is many of the cases we find that there are say 1 lakh wards available. In each of these wards there are pumps available. We want that how many hours that pump has been that has worked. So for that purpose, it is very difficult that every time there is a person there have a mobile phone, takes the image or gets data. So IoT based solutions basically are extremely useful, by which we are able to capture data online, and such can be integrated with our servers that IoT devices automatically pushes data from that. So slowly you will find that IoT devices are being used in various kind of applications which we will have. So this will not only improve the quality of delivery system, but many of the business rules can be placed in the IoT devices which can help us. One of another example I'm telling you, pothole identification is one of the major concern for road construction. We are also incorporating that these IoT devices can be with IoT camera that can be placed on vehicles, and the vehicle moves on the road and it automatically through AI technique it is able to identify the pothole, and then GPS location it is able to send to the server so that we are able to identify that there is a pothole. So such kind of applications are in pipeline, and there is a need that startup companies work in these kind of areas, provide solutions, and that solution basically is available to the citizen through recurring mode or through government contributions mode. All those things will come. So there are such kind of environment. Healthcare is going to use a lot of this IoT devices for health management related activities. Transportation is going to use a lot of this kind of activities. So as we have been talking, there are a lot of application areas available in which many of the state governments and central governments currently are working, so that the life of the see, the ultimate aim is there are billions of people living in the villages, in the citizens, in the urban areas, and every day they have variety of services. Digital transformation is going to touch upon the life of each of these individuals, and as a technocrat, our role is to how effectively such kind of delivery systems with various standard protocols we are able to deliver such kind of services, so that the quality of life, quality of the citizen, and at least since COVID pandemic is there, our role to standby to our citizen, where their life is protected and their life is basically made somewhat easy. It is our and once we develop indigenously entire solutions, we come together and bring up our society. This is going to really transform the way the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat basically is to have everything or more things. I cannot tell everything, but more things developed indigenously, and lot of collaborative efforts among us takes place, by which we share our ideas and help our society. So this is what basically I had. Uh, but I think last we will just conclude this. We are talking of minimum government and maximum governance. We were talking about DBT. Most of them, we want that the money should be transferred to the bank accounts. I'll tell you, as I always discuss, this is the first time in the COVID period we were able to transfer around 20 crore transactions in case of our state. 20 crore transactions to the citizens, including all the people who cannot move outside, to their bank accounts, so that at least on average around 6,000 rupees we were able to pay to their bank accounts. Now this is the power, without touching the without going to anywhere, without anything, we are able to benefit. That is the power of the digital transformation which India is taking place, and hope we will be again getting benefited through this. So thank you very much. Hope I am finished my this thing.
Thank you, sir, for your illuminating address. Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Sunil Pandey, sir, Director IT and UG Program, ITS Ghaziabad, to discourse upon the audience regarding the digital transformation of India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chaturvedi sir. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir. So thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi, for this honor. I really feel privileged to be part of this wonderful initiative. Respected Professor A.K. Nayak sir, in fact, who happens to be our guide, our teacher, our friend, philosopher, what not. Dr. Shailesh Srivastava sir, it's really wonderful to see you virtually. Dr. Durgesh Mishra ji, Mr. Rajan Saab, and all the dignitaries from Computer Society of India. It's really a pleasure to see Professor H.S. Sharma Sharal sir here. So, first of all, I would like to thank to the members of organizing team of this wonderful webinar for giving this honor to be part of this session. In fact, various aspects have been touched upon by earlier speakers on the tone which was set by Professor A.K. Nayak sir during his chief guest address about this theme, the digital transformation, and specifically in the context of India. We all know when we talk about digital transformation, in fact, formally, it's the process of using digital technologies to create new or modifying existing business processes, business culture, the customer experience, and all these are aligned to meet the changing business and market requirements. We all know that India globally, the highest number, more than 1.2 billion people enrolled in the world's largest unique identity digital identity program. India is second with 12.3 billion app downloads, and this was towards end of 2018. So number must have increased substantially, and we are waiting for the latest information on that. There are 1.17 billion wireless phone subscribers. This is the second after China. over 560 million internet subscribers, over 354 million smartphone devices, and over 294 million people, those who are engaged in social media. Now, this huge presence on these digital platforms, it itself speaks the volume, the potential what India has when it comes to digital transformation. We all know that, and especially this is more emphasized due to this COVID pandemic 19. We all are living in the VUCA world. VUCA, when I say VUCA, we all know that it's volatility, uncertainty, the complexity, and then there's ambiguity. And when we say this, when we use these four words, when we say that we are living in the VUCA world, before March, because why I'm saying March, it was March when country was forced into lockdown, countrywide lockdown situation due to this impact of COVID-19. Even before that, this VUCA word, this word was coined and used intensely, heavily in the industry, because there were multiple key decision factors. So these things were making the things complex. The rate of change was very fast. That's a volatile. The lack of clarity about meaning of an event. That's ambiguity. And then, of course, unclear about the present. So uncertainty means how well can we predict the outcome of our action, and how much do we know about the situation. And these two conditions, they forced us into a VUCA world where in industry, everyone was so in a situation where people were finding things not that easy as it was 5 years back. And in fact, this VUCA word has dominated the industry in such a way because the industry requirements were changing, different research reports which were coming from different apex bodies like NASSCOM, then of course in World Economic Forum 2018, when there was during this World Economic Forum, there was a session of leaders, industry leaders of leading global companies in Doha. And when during that meeting, the one thing on which all these people, they had consent that in next few years down the lane, the thing which is going to dominate, the thing which is going to lead the industry will not be same as it was earlier. That things were expected to be changing very fast. The kind of technology is required were expected to change heavily. And because of these compulsions, the kind of skills which will be required during these next few years would also be different. And it was told that it was also presented by Accenture, which is the leading research consulting company also. They came up with a research report that the kind of advancement, the kind of technology is coming, the way industry requirements are changing, the infrastructure is going to be drastically enhanced or improved by inclusion of different applications, different technologies, especially which will be based on AI, the machine learning, deep learning, RPA, and especially the manufacturing sector is going to be impacted heavily. And these new changes, this adoption of new technologies will force the people to go for upskilling or reskilling. And if they do not do that, the NASSCOM, the same year, they came up with a report during the latter part of the year that means in next 4 years, if people do not reskill or upskill or align with the changes which are taking place, 40% of existing workforce is going to be replaced. Means the jobs of 40% people are at stake. Why? It is not because the implementation of AI or machine learning, RPA or deep learning or these technologies are going to take away the job of people, but the kind of skills would be required to operate, to function. They would be requiring different kind of a skill set, and these 40% people will have to upgrade or upskill themselves on these technologies. And if this doesn't happen, structure, the kind of infrastructure which used to exist few years the kind of initiative government is taking, like Nal Jal Yojana, what he mentioned. It's really wonderful initiative. But the thing is, when these IoT devices are going to be integrated, these IoT devices, it is expected that by 2025, 50 billion devices are going to be connected, something like that. I mean, a huge number of devices are going to be connected. Now, what these connected devices will do, they will keep communicating, they will keep interacting among themselves. And while communicating among themselves, they will be creating huge amount of data. Now that huge amount of data, that voluminous data needs to be stored somewhere. Now, do we have that sufficient infrastructure to host that data? And even if we have, if we create that infrastructure, the kind of processing capability required on this voluminous database, this voluminous data is stored, rather, I should not say database because it restricts its size, but if I say the data is stored, the kind of volume we are going to have and the kind of processing power would be required to process it, to analyze it, it has to be seen. Because, and that's why now people are talking about different skill sets altogether. The data analytics, business analytics, and all these requirements have created a different stream altogether, to which we call data science. Few years back, people used to, it is predicted that by 2025, the amount of data which is going to be created will be around 175 zettabyte, which was just 2 zettabyte in 2010. So the pace this volume of data is increasing, the infrastructure which is required to be created, maintained, and ensure that it works properly, it is going to be a huge challenge. And all these developments are related. That entire ecosystem needs to be incongruent so that all these things are aligned in such a way that ultimately every component, every part contributes in attainment of the objective for these systems are going to be deployed. The initiative of central government, the initiatives of state governments, which Sri Shailesh has already mentioned, because when Nayak sir and Shailesh sir, when these people come together and speak, they don't leave anything for others to cover. But the entire ecosystem which needs to be aligned, it requires the understanding of processes, the requirements, because the research report which says that 99%, even more than 90% of data which we store, they are never used for analysis purpose. So that careful analysis, that how to identify, how to get the data out, which needs to be actually stored and processed, is again it's a challenge. There are a number of organizations which are working on it, and probably this was the challenge why a company like Oracle, they had to think about Exalogic kind of system, where they decided that the database application itself had a component of storage, it's screening, and screening not by by bringing it into somewhere like memory, but where actually data is stored, it has to be screened there so that amount of data which actually needs to be processed is reduced, and so performance can be improved. So these infrastructural things. So what I was referring to, there are a number of policies which have been initiated, came from central government, from state government, and all these initiatives, they're creating an ecosystem where even common people can think of coming forward, exploiting these initiatives. And entrepreneurship is something which is very fastly is picking up. Of course, there may be debate that how much entrepreneurs came and how many of them succeeded for more than 3 years or 5 years. There can be different factors, but the fact remains facts. At least people have started daring to think. And especially in case of India, I was just referring, reading a research paper. Of course, there are multiple verticals domain where India is doing very good. In fact, India is the only country in the medium and lower medium economy after these the leading economies. India is the only country which has got its positioning to be ready with the Industry 4.0. And these things are not coming like that. These things are coming because of that hard work has gone into in last few years. People, those who are working on ground, and they have created it. So, and that's why today any debate on global digital transformation always includes a mention of India. The country boasts the second largest internet market, driven by massive investment in new technology. With more people now online, the country enjoys higher innovation in technology and has emerged as a leader in digital solution. And considering all this, there are 5 major areas, and especially the students, if some of them are a student, they should be very, it should interest them. There are 5 top industries which are driving the digital transformation in India. It includes that mobile application development. A recent report indicated that India would have the world's largest developer base by 2024. Now, who all these developers would be? These new young students, those who are in school or colleges, they have started daring to exploit the policies, using the policies, getting benefited by it. And now it is recognized that India is going to be the world's largest developer base by 2024. This comes in the backdrop of heavy investment in innovative technologies by government and corporates. The country currently boasts over 1.67 million app economy jobs, which have continued to grow consistently over the last 2 decades. The rising demands of mobile-based services because with the increased infrastructure, with the increased facilities available now to people, the adaptability, the affordability, the availability of technology and resources with the people. Now, all these contributing, and this heavy adoption of technology, the demand of these equipments like laptops, even headphones. If you go to buy a wireless headphone in 100 or 200 capacity, you will always find shortage of that, and it will take time to be delivered. So last 8 months have shown the tremendous adoption of technology. Even a faculty of subject like Hindi, who used to be never considered to appreciate the technology, now they are delivering classes, they are taking lectures in online mode. And this all change has not taken years or months, just few days. Within few days, entire adoption has taken place. We were forced to be in lockdown on 22nd March, and within a week time, all of us were online. And that too in situation because of lockdown, there was no proper training provision. So everyone started realizing, accepting the challenge, and within few days, we saw that entire education sector was on digital medium. And not only the classes, but the examinations were conducted in online mode in most of the places, and things are still continuing. So this education sector has seen a tremendous change, and we all are seeing. And today, It is the adoption of technology and huge demand of all these things. That's what made the job of institutions much difficult. Now, as a faculty, when we take a class in classroom, nothing is recorded. But when you are online, whatever we are saying, everything is recorded. The class is not only attended by the student, but the parents are attending. The known people are attending, the people, those who have experience, if they're at home, they are attending it. The challenge before the faculty has increased. And the challenge is not to humiliate anybody, but to put extra effort to make sure that the things which are being communicated are rechecked, re-verified, so that they are correct, they are effective, and students are able to follow it. With faculty from history, faculty from geography, these faculty members have created their lectures videos. They are creating their online contents and putting on their institutions or university websites. So such kind of, and there was a joke which was in fact spread on WhatsApp, that who has led this digital technology in your company, the CEO, the CTO, or COVID-19? And this COVID-19, in fact, has played very crucial role in bringing this technology now. And this has increased the pressure on people from technology. Because 8-9 months back, when a video conferencing session used to happen, the technical people used to be called. Now this is new normal. Now as a technical person, if I say I know how to conduct video conferencing session, this is no big job because everyone does it. Not to make yourself distinctive, differentiate you. As a technology person, we need to find some other way, some other mechanism to make ourselves different. So that education sector is one. The teaching learning have received a huge boost through initiatives such as Swayam Prabha, National Digital Library, Virtual Labs, eYantra, and many of the institutions, they have created their own platform. And now it is readily available across multiple educational labs. Third is entertainment. The entertainment sector in India has continued thriving over the last few. Now new technology play a big role in boosting growth in this sector. The music and movie industry, for instance, have benefited a lot from digital downloads, streaming services. Now, if we see in last few months, all the cinema hall, the multiplexes were closed. But Netflix or websites like this, these portals, they have seen tremendous downloads, and their earnings have gone multiple times ahead. So that entertainment industry, it has the video gaming has also grown due to availability of high quality local games because now internet bandwidth is not that much issue. With the increased bandwidth, and that too in affordable cost, is creating an infrastructure, creating a base for taking up. Third is e-commerce. India is one of the leading e-commerce market in world. By 2025, it is expected that Indian online shoppers will reach 220 million. The same report says that e-commerce sector will grow 1200% by 2026. Now, the growing online penetration continues to boost e-commerce with many startups and leading global brands harnessing the opportunity. The country has all ingredients to drive online e-commerce, including a young demographic profile, increasing internet penetration, and improving economic performance. One vertical which has really taken advantage of this entire pandemic, and of course this is life-saving for all of us and has helped to fight against this global pandemic COVID-19, is the healthcare. And India is renowned worldwide for its health industry, and new technology has helped to maintain this reputation. The digital technology which empowers medical professionals to deliver better services. And information technology is playing a critical role in the collection of data, data analysis, sharing of patients' information, and much more. If some of you have experienced the telemedicine, I happened to be at HP office in Delhi, and they had installed a demo machine for healthcare, where I sat on the chair. They put certain two, three wires by hand on chest, and all the vital information was recorded. It was sent to somebody, some doctor who was sitting in Bangalore, who was online on that LED screen. And I was talking to him while sitting in Delhi without any physical presence or physical sample. Now, this telemedicine, it's something which has come up very fast. And I'm sure that all these things are creating a base for India to for a launching pad, which will lead or which will take our country, India, in the elite group, where as a citizen of this great country, we all will be really feeling taking pride and feeling really good. So this entire this digital transformation, in fact, not touching the technology itself, but every sector, every vertical, whether it is education, whether it is healthcare, whether it is entrepreneurship, whether it is manufacturing, everything is is on the cusp of going to next orbit. Of course, this pandemic has put some break on this, but this is not going to be long lasting, and very soon we expect that things will be back, because in first quarter we had a very severe impact on GDP. Next quarter it has improved, and there are signs that things will improve slowly. And once things improve, things back to normalcy, we are out of this trauma of pandemic COVID-19. I'm sure that all of us will have a wonderful place to live, wonderful opportunities to work, to contribute, and grow, prosper. I'm really thankful to the organizing team for inviting me. And once again, with pranam to Professor Nayak sir, Professor H.S. Sharma sir, and everyone from Computer Society of India, and all Sally Srivastava sir, namaskar to everyone, and Dr. Bhavesh Chauhan sir, I missed you in the beginning. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to be at this platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now the time to probe out your queries. Anyone from the audience can ask the question if you have any. You can either drop your question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask directly.
I repeat, anyone from the audience can ask the question from the speakers. I see many of the hands were raised during the webinar. So if anybody have any issue, all the speakers are ready to answer you. Okay, fine. Now I humbly request our student branch coordinator, HOD CSE, Professor Dr. Diwakar Yagyasen sir, to give the vote of thanks to our respected speakers and all the attendees who joined us today. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar. Thank you all for joining this one-day webinar on India and digital transformations. First, I would like to thank to our chief patron, Mrs. Alka Das ma'am, and our patron, Mr. Viraj Sagar Das ji. Okay. Mr. Viraj Sagar Das ji for permitted us for organizing this webinar, and I am very much thankful for respected director sir, Professor Dr. Bhavesh Kumar Chauhan sir, for encouraging and motivating to organize this webinar. Then I am very much thankful to our chief guest, Professor A.K. Nayak sir, our CSI President, Mr. R.K. Vyas sir, our guest of honor, Dr. Durgesh Kumar Mishra sir, our distinguished guest, Dr. B. Chidambarajan, Chairman, Division 4 CSI Communications, Professor Arvind Sarma sir, Vice President, Region 1 CSI, Dr. Sailesh Kumar Srivastava sir, Scientist and Head Research Center NIC Patna, Professor Dr. Sunil Pandey sir, Director, Information Technology and Undergraduate Program ITS Ghaziabad. Thank you all our distinguished speakers for encouraging and sharing their experience with all attendees. Also, I would like to thank to our CSI organizing team, our faculty members and students, and all participants from all over India, from different government and private organizations. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks and regards.
With this, we are signing off for the day. I, on behalf of CSI Student Council of VVD ITM, CSI chapter, pay our sincere thanks to our speakers and attendees for making this event successful. Thank you so much for maintaining the discipline and cooperating with us patiently throughout the session. Hope this webinar proves fruitful to you all. Thank you for taking out your time to attend this beneficial webinar. Good afternoon and goodbye.
Thank you to all.
Thank you.